Bonus number 5, days 21 through 25. What quiet trust has built. I'm Avery, and welcome to Daily Grace. This season, we are walking through a series called Trust, a steady return to God. Today, we are pausing for a quiet recap. Take a slow breath with me. Let your shoulders soften. Let the moment settle. There is no rush here. Sometimes the most meaningful part of a journey is the moment when we stop moving forward and simply look around, not to analyze, not to measure progress, just to notice what has quietly changed. Over the past several days, we have been walking through the later part of this season together. Not the beginning where everything feels fragile, not the middle where the questions feel loud, but this quieter place, the place where trust has begun to grow roots beneath the surface. And often we do not notice those roots forming because quiet growth does not demand attention, it simply continues. Trust rarely announces itself. It does not arrive like a sudden breakthrough. More often, it appears slowly, like strength returning to a tired muscle, like light slowly filling a room at sunrise. You begin to notice small shifts. You respond with a little more calm. You breathe a little more easily. You realize you are no longer carrying quite as much fear as before. Nothing has dramatic, but something steady has been forming. Trust changes the way we hold life. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because we are no longer trying to carry everything alone. There's a quiet kind of courage that grows when we allow God to walk with us through ordinary days. It is not loud, it does not draw attention to itself, but it is strong. Over these past days, we have been gently exploring what it means to trust God again in the middle of real life, not in perfect circumstances, not when everything makes sense, but here, in the middle of uncertainty, in the middle of relationships that are still healing, in the middle of days that feel both hopeful and fragile at the same time. Trust grows here. It grows in the middle spaces. And scripture reminds us of something simple and steady. In Psalm 28:7, the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me. There is something quiet in those words. The Lord is my strength, my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me. Not someday, not after everything is solved, right here in the middle of the journey. Sometimes trust begins with something very small, a moment where you pause instead of panic, a moment where you breathe instead of forcing an answer, a moment where you remember that God is already present before you try to figure everything out. These small moments are not insignificant. They are the building blocks of trust. Many of us think strength must look dramatic, but often the strongest thing a heart can do is simply remain open, to continue walking, to continue believing that God is still steady, even when life is still unfolding. I remember when I was walking through a period of deep uncertainty. There were many things I could not control, decisions that felt heavy, questions that did not have quick answers. And for a long time, I kept waiting for clarity to arrive. I thought trust would appear once everything made sense, but that is not what happened. Instead, something quieter began to grow. Each morning, I would sit with a cup of coffee and a few quiet minutes. No sudden clarity, no perfect answers, just stillness. But slowly I realized something. The fear that had once filled my thoughts with every morning was beginning to soften. Not because the situation had changed, but because I had begun placing that uncertainty into God's hands again and again, day by day, moment by moment. Trust was growing quietly. It did not announce itself. And that is often how God works within us, not through sudden transformation, but through steady presence. You may not always see the growth happening in your heart, but the very fact that you are still here, still listening, still opening your heart to God, that is already evidence of something beautiful taking place. Trust reshapes the heart over time. It loosens the grip of fear. It softens the need to control every outcome. It reminds us that we are not responsible for carrying tomorrow before it arrives. God walks with us through today, and today is enough. So as we pause here together, let yourself notice something gently. Not what still feels uncertain, not what still feels unfinished, but what has grown quietly within you. Maybe you have become a little more patient with yourself. Maybe you have allowed God into places that once felt closed. Maybe your heart has simply learned to breathe again. These are not small things, they are signs of life. Trust is not built through pressure, it is built through presence, through returning to God again and again, through allowing His steadiness to hold what we cannot carry. And over time, that steady trust begins to reshape the way we stand in the world, not perfectly, but peacefully, not without questions, but without fear leading the way. So today, simply rest in that truth. You do not have to measure your progress. You do not have to prove anything. God sees the quiet work happening within you, and it matters. Trust grows slowly, but it grows strong. And the heart that learns to trust again becomes a steady place for peace to live. May you move through this day gently. May you remember that trust does not have to rush. God is steady, and you are still being held. Until next time, this is Avery.